Bien, je viens de présider la séance du Conseil de sécurité.
The Security Council.
Fin de la présidence française.
The end of France's presidency over the UN Security Council during the month of October,
Essentiellement consacré à la montée en
which was essentially dedicated to the ramping up of the G5 Sahel Joint Force.
Je vous rappelle les étapes de
Allow me to give you a reminder of the different steps, the important steps of this.
la cinquième étape.
This was the fifth step
Il y a d'abord eu
that we completed today.
au mois de juin 2017
In June 2017,
l'adoption de la résolution
there was the adoption of Resolution 2359 that approved the joint force for the G5 Sahel and its operation. The second step was the Bamako summit of the heads of state of the G5 countries
présence du président français.
in the presence of the French president, and that is when France gave its bilateral support to the G5, and that is when the European Union mobilized itself for a significant financial amount.
Puis le 19 septembre,
On September the 19th, at the UN General Assembly,
du Sahel se sont
the heads of state of the Sahel countries met here with the Secretary General
activé le processus.
to activate the process.
L'étape suivante a été
The next step was the report given by the Secretary General on October the 16th last, that we just mentioned, that brought very constructive options to a multilateral support. After that, the Security Council went on location, and this morning we had a meeting by the Security Council which will anticipate a next step, and the next step will be the meeting on the support for the planification of the operations to be held in Brussels on December the 14th. The meeting I chaired was, in this spirit, a very positive meeting, and this reminded me, or reminded us all, of the fact that the G5 terrorist groups in Sahel were a threat to security in the region, but also internationally. Thank you. There's a sound problem here. This meeting allowed us to consolidate the vision of the different members of the Security Council and allows for a clear, strong and coordinated support action. The G5 Sahel force has a clear mandate, which is to fight terrorist groups and any kind of trafficking in the Sahel region, and has acted with the support of other countries, with the support of the African Union, and with the support of the Security Council based on Resolution 2359. From now on, the joint force is an operational reality. Since today, the first operation has taken off. It's the Harbi operation. It will be conducted until its conclusion and will anticipate other operations, other actions. I noticed with great interest the unanimous support from all of the speakers this morning, their support provided to the G5 joint force, with a common concern, which is the support that the international community can give through funding. This planification will be discussed at the Brussels meeting on December the 14th, and I would like to pay tribute to the announcement made by the US that they would pledge $60 million to the operation. And we also talked about the way the international community can support this operation through the UN, namely logistically for the implementation of the proposals made by the Secretary General. All of these discussions are going to lead to commitments, real commitments, and due resolutions that will delineate the different articulations between MINUSMA and the Joint Force. And of course for the preparation of the conference to be held on December the 14th in Brussels. And between now and December the 14th, France will be fully committed to the prospects and will contribute, in addition to this, to advancing its alliance with the Sahel region, which had been announced by Chancellor Merkel and President Macron to reinforce coordination and the support by the different donors in the field to enhance stabilization and the development of these countries, and to make sure that in parallel to the support to the G5 Joint Force, there be support to development that be given as strongly and efficiently as possible. Thank you very much for your attention. We have very little time. Two questions. Minister, the Americans announced they would contribute $60 million, but they said that they were against any kind of UN support. How do you understand their reluctance? Well, I can only say that I'm very happy about the American support, the financial support, and I had an opportunity to discuss this with the different the Secretary of State recently. I think this will be reaffirmed during the Brussels meeting. It will be attended by the Americans. And regarding the logistical support of MINUSMA, provided by MINUSMA, to the G5 Sahel Joint Force, now we will see how the recommendations made by the Secretary General will be implemented. There are different ways of doing so. There are several options. What would be a shame is that there would be two kinds of logistical support for two parallel forces. I hope we will find one.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. It's Pamela Falk from CBS News. I'm following up on the question that Le Monde just presented to you. Are you disappointed at the U.S.? Needless to say, it's money, but it's pending congressional approval, and it is defiantly, or at least distinctively, not multilateral. What is your message to the United States on why this needs to be a multilateral force? Thank you.
The G5 Sahel force is a joint force by definition, so it is very useful in the field. I think that the fact that the U.S. acknowledges the usefulness of the force is essential. And it is something new today. The fact that we have to find the best way, the most effective way of fighting terrorism is quite obvious to me, seems obvious to me, and I think in the weeks to come we'll be able to fine-tune the articulation between MINUSMA and the joint force. That is part of multilateralism, of course. Question sur la Syrie, Monsieur le Ministre.
James Bays from Al Jazeera. We've heard that the Special Envoy, Mr. de Mistura, is hoping to bring the parties back to Geneva. We've seen many rounds of Geneva talks that have got nowhere at all. How do you see the prospects for peace now?
L'évolution de la situation maintenant. I think we have to avoid losing peace at all cost, because now we're winning the war, of course. But it's important, however, to have the best possible forum for discussing matters. To have a scenario that allows political transition. And we can see that that scenario is absolutely necessary now. And this scenario needs to integrate an electoral process, a new constitution, and prospects for reconstructing the country. I think we need to assess with Mr. de Mistura and the other stakeholders which the best forum for discussion is. And we don't think the best forum is the Astana forum because it's not the purpose of it. We have noticed that the Geneva talks are stalled, so I think it is the responsibility of the 5 members of the Security Council to come up with proposals, and France will certainly be there.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Thank you.